All right, hello everybody. Welcome back. It is another episode of the Wireheads podcast, where your host, Diamond Dust, and of course my best friend in the whole wide world.
Hello, my name's Emmerron. I'm the other guy who works here. It's been a couple of weeks.
It has
some of the weeks of all time, I would say.
It has been the month of
yeah. So
it has
so
been
far
a month of all time.
So far, yeah. January itself has been one of the months of all time.
What a year, and it's only January 22nd.
Real and true. But yeah, I'm the other guy who's here. I had hoped to be saying I am also the GM of the actively ongoing campaign Neon Inferno that we do every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific. However, my plans to do that this week were stymied by a comedy of problems that can't even be called errors, really. They were just, some of them were errors, some of them were the universe kicking the entire crew in the teeth. We might get to that in Q&A today, if anyone's curious about it. I certainly will talk about it on Monday during the actual first session of Neon Inferno. But yeah, we are about to be so back, and I just need reality to cooperate with me for like a day, just a single day. It would be awesome if it did that.
That's a tall order in these times.
Yeah, apparently I didn't realize that was going to become one of the tariffed items in 2026, but here I am. Here we are.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, here on this podcast we talk about we sit here and we talk about one of our favorite games in the whole wide world called Cyberpunk Red.
It's a good one.
Which, you know, I don't know about Emmerron, but like it's still like my number one game. I know Cyberpunk Red and Daggerheart are like, you know, throwing hands over there in Emmerron's office.
It truly is a melee to the finish right now between them, but I can love them both equally. That, you know, it's like it's kind of like Jay always says, please don't ask me to pick favorites. But no, there's a very good reason I still run multiple games of Cyberpunk Red in a week. The only thing that is holding me back, though, quite honestly, from doing the same for Daggerheart is the fact Daggerheart does not have any really solid VTT implementations yet. Like, technically they've got a kind of okay one between Demiplane and Roll20, kind of.
Life finds a way.
Life will find a way. I know they're working with several VTTs right now to get stuff up off the ground. You know, Fantasy Grounds is one that they have talked about publicly, and there's rumors in the background that they're working with several others. Alchemy, I believe, is also, yeah, they're doing something with Alchemy as well. So like, I'm keeping an eye out, because the moment, literally, you could bet your ass that like within a week, 2 tops of them announcing a workable VTT integration, that I can go out and I can just pick it up and it works. I will be listing Daggerheart games if it doesn't happen before that. Because there's some ways I can do it with Demiplane that would, like, they would work, but they wouldn't really allow me to do it in the way that I do APs. The way I do APs with battle maps and stuff like that, that's the thing we're missing from any current integrations for long distance play for that game. But it is very good, and I really want to play just so much more of it than I currently do right now. Like, oh my god, I want to use all the tools I have available for that game. And actually, funny enough, I'm so glad you brought up Daggerheart. Some of what I'll be talking about my half of the episode this week is stuff I have learned since picking Daggerheart up. So this is one of those things we've talked about before on the podcast, where you play multiple tabletop games, you have these lovely things that you find in each of them that kind of change your perspective or the way that you run other games, because you see something really cool and you're like, oh, that could just work. Like, full stop, pretty much agnostic system-wise. It just works. Like, so we're going to talk about some of that today in my half of the episode. But of course, starting off today is Diamond's half of things, and so we're gonna have her lead us into the first topic.
Yeah. One last thing. I know. Just like Columbo. Just one more thing here. The podcast is now sponsored a little. We are now affiliated with Talsorian Games.
If I had a soundbite, I'd be throwing party sirens right now. Here, I've got it.
Oh, yeah, it's like somewhere in here. Just
bam, there it is in chat. It's so if you are watching this later on Spotify or YouTube, the link is going to be down in the description below some of the other stuff. But we now have a promo code that you can use anytime you buy books directly from Talsorian Games through their website. So talsorianstore.com. You can either go there with our full affiliate link, which is talsorianstore.com/wireheads, which would get you the benefits of using it, or you can use code wireheads at checkout if you're going there through their main website, as I know so much of us do. And it comes with some benefits.
To be very forward about what it does, because I always like a little transparency. You are going to get a 10% discount on your order of anything from the Talsorian store. We hope you're buying Cyberpunk Red items, because you should. I mean, it's a great game.
We've got Shadow Scar as well there, which is a great game.
Yeah.
The soon-to-be-released Fossilized Violence, which is also a great game.
Castle Falkenstein.
Yep. We got some of the old stuff for Cyber Generation, Cyberpunk 2020.
Teenagers from Outer Space.
List goes on. Like, they've got a bunch of products on that storefront. Those of you who have been fans of Talsorian Games for a while will know it well. I know I've ordered quite a few of my physical books, especially when I was newer to the game. And not really making content so much, but just like enjoying it as one of my hobbies. There were plenty of times where when a new book came out, like Black Chrome, I remember very specifically, it was one of these.
Yeah.
Where I went out on their site, like the day that got announced as it was released, and like went out there and got my copy ordered, and I was able to be happy when 3 days later I looked at that book being sold out.
Oh yeah, I remember, like, actually, just sitting there in the patrol car, just on my phone, because it was release day, and I'm just like sitting there hoping that my phone does not choke. I'm pretty sure I was one of the first orders in, but also I have that horn for you here.
It's not the right party horn, but we'll work with it.
I'm on a little bit of a budget here. So, that being said, today's topic, and also the other part of, like, the transparency, we get a 10% kickback.
We do.
So, whatever you use our code, it also helps support the channel. It helps us continue the work that we do.
Yes.
And, as well, we do have our own personal codes that will be for, like, when we're doing other stuff.
Yes.
But if you're here and you want to support the podcast, use code Wireheads or the link at the store.
Yep. It's good. It helps a lot, more than you would think.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can use it as many times as you want to. This isn't like a first order promo. This is anytime you go order. If you enter Wireheads in, you will get 10%. It is value. It's
fantastic. You get that fixer's 10% anytime.
Exactly.
Today we are talking, like, I was talking with Emmerron about this. I was having a discussion with some friends about progression in Cyberpunk outside the normal, like, because, whenever we hear progression, we think improvement points. That's the obvious. Improvement points, yes. But another part of progression is the player's equipment as well. And also how they approach situations put in front of them. That was kind of part of it, and later it led on to being able to give the players the nudge that they need without grabbing their hand and walking them through it. Now, given there are times where, you know, sometimes your players might be so stumped where you may need to be a little forward with it.
Yeah.
I have been there. Sometimes it happens. But more often than not, I have been learning how to give that nudge or, you know, environmental storytelling or environmental what I'm trying to think, what is the word when there's just like stuff put in the environment that just kind of catches the eye to get like, oh, I need to go this way.
I mean, that's environmental guidance or storytelling, depending on like what you're talking about. Because the storytelling is usually when you see a dead body. Next to that dead body are a couple of you know, guns and shells, and it paints a picture of what happened here, right? And then you can kind of math it together. Like 2077 does this a lot with data shards, where you'll walk up, find a data shard next to what's very clearly, like, one of my favorites in this category is in Pacifica. You can find a kick-ass Easter egg where you find a dude in a neoprene suit with stun batons laying out next to his corpse, and some message that he'd sent to a friend of his trying to tell him, look, you gonk, don't do this. He's like, no, Night City needs a hero. And then you find him flatlined. So like, obviously they did not in fact need him as that hero.
This ain't no place for a hero.
He was not Himothy, unfortunately.
Absolutely not. So when we were thinking about hands-off player guidance, and when I was thinking about what is done, like in the like in some of the pre-written adventures, and also like what do we do to help players continue, like, find the forward progression of the story put in front of them, or that they have to take a moment to be like, uh-oh, I don't think I should be here yet. One of my thoughts here is, of course, kind of based on other games where, like other RPGs, like Cyberpunk 2077's got it. Deus Ex has it. A lot of RPGs have it where you could possibly show up in places that you are definitely not ready to be in. I mean, that even happens in FF14. It's just like, you know, say you fought a few Maelstrom scavs, right? You know, flushed them out of wherever they were digging. That is very different than going into the hot zone where a monster lurks around in there. And that monster, I have made cue that there is bodies. There are bodies absolutely mangled that had decent looking gear on them too. You find some cool stuff, but you shouldn't be here.
And that is what we call environmental storytelling, kids.
Yes.
If they had the good gear and still got wiped, what chance do you stand? Like,
yeah, yes, little rank 4 edge runners, you did find an excellent quality heavy pistol, and also a drum mag for an assault rifle, and you also found the owner plastered across the ground. What does this tell you? That there is something that I've looked at. That is a very common way to kind of push that there is danger ahead. Something else that I've thought about is like putting things in front of the players that, like, while it may not be like dangerous for them if they manage to get it open, it's much more difficult to get somewhere if you don't have the right equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you are a tech. You have your tech tool, and you have your little tool hand with, all your little doodads and gadgets on it. And you guys are getting lined up for a job that involves you busting into a bank. All right? You got to get in there. Your little tools might not be enough to deal with whatever security is going on inside that bank. So maybe it's time for you to go find a tool bag. It is time to spend that 500 eddies to ensure that you have the proper tools for this job. Or perhaps
1,000 eddies to get you a tech scanner.
This is true as well. In the case of, say, your solo, sure, the Sternmeyer that you're packing, it's decent enough. It gets the job done. You've got, some modifications you can put on it. But you're starting to get up there where you're running with the big dogs. And then suddenly you are being asked to try to nail an elusive target. Like, the crew needs to find this guy and bag them dead or alive. And this person is known for this person's known to be slippery. This person can get out of the way. They have cyberware that's allowing them to just avoid getting hurt. It's maybe time for an excellent quality assault rifle. Or perhaps maybe a scope. And sit a little bit further back where you can't be seen instead of your normal forte of going in the front door. What this also encourages is for players to think about outside, their skills, outside their rank and role. What do they need to find? Where do they need to go? Who do they need to know in order to get something done? And I think with that, I feel that is a very good spot to start with some offhand player guidance, or like hands-off player guidance, is finding ways to put things in front of the players that encourage them to find either better equipment, an alternate route, or perhaps they need to do a little more digging. Perhaps the netrunner usually tends to just find the basics, like unlock the doors, turn off the cameras, doesn't go any further. But perhaps there is important information further down that maybe the netrunner just doesn't grab the files normally. Why would you not grab the files, netrunner? Grab the files. Always grab the files. That's coming from me. There was one time I did not grab the files, and it got one of us killed. So, and that file, in that case, may talk about what the person might be keeping on stock, what's on hand, or where, or like other plans that they have of like where they might be going, or maybe even a manifesto. So that being said, sorry, Emmerron, I'm rambling. With you, and do some hands-off player guidance. We've talked a little bit about environmental storytelling and also like roadblocks. What other tools have you used to put things in front of the players?
So one tactic I use, because it's less of a tool and more of a tactic, is I tutorialize failure. And what I mean by that is before I put them up to something really, really big, like a bank heist, if we're using that as an example, right? We might instead, at one point in the path of getting them through another gig, we may encounter a smaller safe, like say like a floor safe, right? with a high enough DV that it's going to be difficult for anyone without a high enough skill check to clear the DV. Now they might, it's still possible they might do that once, right? But you make it so that if they fail, suddenly they've learned, oh, I can't just go break into a safe. I need an extra skill. And this is like especially true if the party doesn't have a tech and their netrunner hasn't invested in electronic security tech, which netrunners, you always want to think, this is just a bit of heads up advice. If you are the netrunner, your roll ability isn't based in any stat or skill.
Yep.
So you can get very creative about where you spend your stat points and your skill points to allow you to do stuff that you wouldn't be able to do without a net normally, like break locks, pick locks, break turrets, even if it comes to something that's not networked in.
Electronic security tech is also important now for netrunners because they can use their roll ability to hack agents. Like you get to add interface on top of all that.
Right. So the first thing we do is you create optional sub-objectives early on that will test the party's composition one way or another, right? So if that's testing them, like I just described, for a security challenge, or like a skill challenge for can you use your skill and overcome this, could be like breaking into a safe. It could be something like needing to throw an object across a gap or something like that, if they're like in a crumbling building in the hot zone, for example. And then they're rolling athletics to try and like maybe toss a rope across if they didn't bring grapple guns. But in presenting these various challenges, some of which they will have skills for, I should very, very clearly identify that you're going to give them stuff that they will be good at. You're also going to give them stuff that they may not be good at. And the reason you do this early is so that as they get those first few sessions worth of IP under their belt, they start getting an idea for, one, how you, a GM, call for checks. Because there's some, I've been mocked at my tables, playfully, but like, by my players, of like, oh, Emmerron, is that gonna be an acting check? Because I make them roll acting when they're trying to deceive someone. Because you are trying to play a part, right? Like, so unless you are doing so only vocally with an argument and only attempting to persuade them, in which case you could argue for persuasion working just as well. Most of the time, you're trying to act natural, right? That's an acting check. These are skills that players aren't going to see immediately and think, oh, I should have points in that. Brawling's another one I see discounted by a lot of people because the first thing they see about
it's
brawling,
so important.
Yeah, the first thing they see about this skill is that it's a weapon skill that doesn't interact with armor like any melee weapon does. So they're like, well, why would I take brawling? I'd much rather have a melee weapon. Until the first time they get grabbed by Dave the Strongman and get thrown across the room. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I should have invested in brawling so that didn't happen. Because if they had a high enough brawling, they could have probably broke his grip. So the reality of it is, if you layer enough of these challenges in a way that are not do or die for the players, so that when you pose the do or die question to them, they've had time to prepare. And so if they fail to, it is not from a lack of awareness, it is from a pure lack of preparation on their part. And they can really only at the end of the day blame themselves for that. They're not going to look at you and say, well, that was a cheap trick, GM. You know I don't have points in that. They might do that, but more often than not, in my experience, this leads to players being like, yep, there's the low brawling. That's that. Yep, that bit me in the ass. And that's really what you're looking to educate them on, is like, what are the little things that they could start looking at now that could bite them in the ass later if they don't do enough to prepare them. And rank 4 low rep is like the perfect kind of space to examine where the weak points on your character sheet are in that context. So that kind of covers IP stuff. The other thing that I do as far as equipment goes is a lot of the time gear stuff will be very hands-on for me in session 0, where if I notice something really glaring, like a player's missing an agent or at least a disposable cell phone, if they have no communication gear at all, I will mention to them, you getting gigs is going to be hard. Like, you getting gigs and being notified about them and working with your party in a collaborative way is going to be really hard, because there's no way to reach you right now based on your character sheet. And so, like, it's okay to call those things out very blatantly in session 0. So that's what session 0 in part is for, is so that you can look over your player sheets. If you're not making your characters at session 0, I know a lot of the time it'll be like a 50-50 split at my tables usually, where like half the party will have a character sheet and they'll be like, yeah, this is the guy I want to play, and I'm more reviewing those to make sure I'm not seeing anything like glaringly obvious. And this is also a good time, I should mention, to bring up like, hey, so I see you don't have any points in acting, and I might call for that in these cases. Are you okay knowing that if I call for that check, you're making it entirely based on your cool stat? Like, is this okay for you? Because they might be okay with that, but now they're aware, like, hey, as a GM at my tables, this is the way I run this and how I run these interactions, because every GM's a little different. So some of this is getting them to know, like, here's your, nuance to doing it this way. The hands-off stuff comes later, where it's like, oh, hey, you know how last time you guys were at a building and, people really failed hard to, get up the building in time, and it was like a race against the clock? Well, what if you had a grapple gun or a grapple hand? And so rather than saying that so blatantly, maybe at your next night market, you put it in front of the players, yeah, they've got grapple guns for sale here. Because that'll jog their memory of the time, oh, fuck, yeah, that's right. If we had a grapple gun when we did this gig, that would have made everything about 5 times easier. Or, oh yeah, I've seen the way that Roller uses his grapple gun all the time, and I just haven't thought to pick one up yet. I should do that. And so some of that is just about like reminding them very softly by including it in their environment, like, hey, remember when this tool could have been useful? And like giving it to them without saying that this is to help with that, Let them think it was their idea is kind of the best way I could phrase that. But yeah, that's kind of where I start leaning into things. Eventually you're going to progress your skill challenges, and that's where players are going to start needing to look at, okay, well, like the IP cost to, like, for example, raise a weapon skill to make me able to hit evasion base 14 or base 16 targets that can dodge bullets. Suddenly I'm needing something a little heavier weight, and the IP amount it would take to raise like either the weapon skill I'm using to try and hit that person, or the roll ability that I have that might help in that same way, is monumentally high. So getting that skill will take me the next like 4 or 5 sessions of IP to just have enough to get a +1. So all of a sudden, you presenting that, hey, here's the escalation of the skill challenge, they're inspired then to start looking through gear. And that might be a case where they then come to you as a GM and ask you, like, hey, so GM, I know I need to make this better. What can I do? And then you can be pretty open with them and just let them know, like, all right, well, here are some options that you could consider. But if they don't get to that point and they don't think to come to you directly and they don't bring it up, what you could easily do is use an NPC with that item to illustrate its usefulness. Or, again, put it on sale at a night market. Because you can just inject it and just say, like, all right, yeah, you had trouble, breaking through that door earlier. But they're selling a tech scanner over here. You again, this doesn't need to be nearly this blatant, but it can just be like, they could be complaining. They say, well, out of the corner of your eye, you notice that they've got some kind of like tech lockpicks and tech hands and tech tools. And then on the table next to all of this, they have a large handheld scanner that is for sale at a relatively high price. and that might give them enough curiosity to go over and ask what the hell that is, or to say, hey, could I roll a check and see what that is? And then you can explain like how the mechanical benefits of that thing work when you describe it to them. So again, a lot of this is just about like not having to like hold their hand forever. Some of it is just like, here is your challenge, either rise above or realize what you need to do the next time this happens so you can defeat it or overcome it.
Also, something else that I've looked at with hands-off player guidance is relationship development, which I mean, we've talked about this before, like between players, and also NPCs. But reputation with certain people, it does matter.
It does.
If you want to get in like real good with certain crowds, you need to be in the. I think what was it? Monday or Tuesday? Was it Monday? Or no, it was yesterday. We were talking about Chicago style.
Chicago style politics. Yeah. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know and what they can get you. As a child of the city of Chicago, I can verify that this has panned out to be largely true in my adult life. And it's very true in Night City. When all of your jobs come to you through a fixer who knows people, your goods come to you through a fixer who knows where they're coming from, and the people who are delivering them, like all of that, your connectivity to the rest of the city socially really, really matters. And like highlighting that and giving your players tutorials of why that matters by like giving them the cold shoulder or something from a powerful fixer early on, and then maybe having that same fixer show them respect a little later on once they've done a little bit and they've actually earned a bit of a name for themselves in the right way, obviously. Like if it's something where they've done heinous things to the wrong people, that fixer might just become their enemy full stop and not just be unimpressed, but be actively antagonistic toward them and whatever goals they've got. But like if the fixer can build respect for them because they worked in that district that fixer regularly works in, then that's a good way to show progression as well and to teach them like this is a good thing. Because maybe that fixer then, like you usually would when they want to barter with that fixer, roll for their haggle, and then on the next time after they've really earned that fixer's respect, they go to buy the thing, and the fixer says, Choom, you can have it at list price. And they can be a little bewildered for a moment, asking, well, you don't want your cut? It's like, nah, that's fine. You're regulars now. Better start acting like it. And like hands them the gun at whatever the face cost of that would normally be, you know? So yeah, they're being nice essentially by cutting their fee out to show respect to the edge runners.
And this isn't, you got to be nice to everyone, but at the end of the day, like, who you make enemies with will determine how far you really get in the city, because, perhaps, this fixer you guys have been working with for a while is just like, guys, I got some really, really good juicy info on a really hot item coming into town. I kind of want to have it for an upcoming night market. And, you've done some work for this fixer, and you guys decide not to ask questions. You guys do the job. You guys bag an experimental weapon. Lo and behold, this experimental weapon was supposed to be going to a midnight market. Congratulations, you've made yourself a real powerful enemy when they find out who took the gun. And then, you hang on to that in the background, but as soon as, you try to start running with power players, perhaps you finally decide to, pay Mr. Royale a visit, and it's just like, so where's that Perseus you stole? Yeah. Do you have it? No? Great. eat this instead, or it's just like, get the fuck out of my neighborhood. You will not be safe in one block.
Yeah.
Perhaps you get no quarter from other high-end fixers, and now you have to make shit right, or you're gonna keep eating kibble because you can't get any jobs that pay that much.
Hell, I've taken this far enough to the point that like players pissed off the wrong people once, and they got like their cargo containers blown up. Like I've gone to that level before, where like their homes get attacked. Like when the party gets found out by a megacorp if they were involved in a heist or something, or they attack the wrong person or whatever. Militech doesn't have a short memory, especially if the thing that you took from them was high value, and they think they can get away with bombing your house off the face of the map. If they feel like they can get away with that, they will do that. They've got the resources to do that. And they need to make sure that you now stand as an example rather than as a Night City legend or a success story. Because your death is now an example to discourage anyone else who would try that shit. And corporations will do that. Make no mistake, especially the big ones. So like, there are ways to teach your players to respect the laws of the jungle, so to speak, in the city a little earlier, where like that's not the first thing you do to them. But I mean, I've also said, if the shoe fits, consequences are the reality of the city. So like, if the consequence makes sense for them to suffer it, if what they did was enough that a fixer or a company might want to come and like take all their shit or break their shit or try to kill them or burn their house with them in it, like all these things can happen at any time if you think it's valid, granted the state of the game, right?
My Monday crew, actually, they curried some really good favor with their fixer, to the point that the fixer was willing to get them early access to a night market that he was organizing. And it got them lined up with a pretty lucrative job from somebody that they don't have high rep, but they have a lot of respect in the city amongst other techs. So should they complete the job, they're going to have access to a lot of people that know a lot of things. And also, the same group was confronted by a bunch of drunk belligerents, and one of the tech noticed, hey, those guys are Aldecaldos. We're not killing them. I really don't want to be on Woodchipper's shit list. Like, absolutely not. Because, like, had that happen, suddenly you will not be getting anything from Woodchipper. Like, one of their easiest points of access for any explosives, gone.
Right.
And you want anything from the port? Absolutely not. You want anything from down south? You better hope the Jodes are feeling real pleasant. Because you kill one nomad, you kill a lot. You kill a lot of relationships.
Yeah, the nomad families don't take kindly to what they view as, fratricide, or the killing of family is not a good thing, right? So the
same goes for the cops.
Yeah, the cops, it's a foregone conclusion. But the nomads in particular, laws are one thing. If you are a nomad and you turn a gun or a weapon on a brother or sister within the pack, they do some. Well, your Raffin at the exile is the best you can hope for, because at worst they will do some fucked up things to you, just for the pleasure of it, if nothing else, to say, oh, okay, you no longer want to be part of the clan. Right on. We can show you a nice hole in the desert. We'll see if you can crawl out of that. Like, it's not good. So yeah, there are ways to kind of illustrate this early on with set dressing. You know, players can like be given a gig by a nomad to say like, hey, all right, so here's the deal. This guy shot 3 of the other nomads in the camp last week. We need you to go retrieve them. Do not kill them. We need to see them alive. You do this for us, we'll pay you 1,000 eddies each, and you know you'll be in on wood chippers next night market. You know, you kill them, we might still pay you, but everything else is off the table, right? Like if they even question it, they can say, look, I'm sure there's a bounty for them with the NCPD, so they might be able to pay you, but we ain't. But the bottom line is, when you get that guy and bring them back as your hiring agent in this case, or as your hiring fixer has had you do, you show the players what happens to this guy who shot at their nomad brothers and sisters. And like, lines and veils withstanding on this, I know this happened in one of the games that I was a player in, and let's just say being dropped in a hole with a rattlesnake and several scorpions in the desert, and then being told, yep, if you're still alive in 2 days, we'll have a conversation, but I'd recommend not jerking around too much. They really don't like that. And then just shutting the lid on this thing in the middle of the desert in the middle of summer.
I've had this little nomad pack that is just like, yeah, one of ours decided to shoot one of our others over some really expensive stuff. Bring them back alive, and we'll have something good for you.
Yeah.
And you know they got a K-Tech hammer out of it that the alongside payment, but they proceeded to watch as these nomads tied this guy by the ankles, hitched him up to the back end of the truck, and just start driving right down a poorly maintained road. Right out to the desert.
So good. You'll love to see it.
Another crew I've seen drawing and quartering happen as well. Ugh.
All these things serve as example, which is the thing you really want. You can do the same thing with corporations, where like, and 2077 actually gave us a pretty good like glimpse of how to do this when really early in the game, after you go through that very first gig post life path intro with Jackie and the scav haunt, and you're driving home, right? And you just crossed the bridge from the inner city into Watson, and what happens is, you know, you see traffic stopped at an intersection around a burning car, and suddenly you just hear the boom of a AV flying in overhead, and Jack even says, oh shit, Max Tax here, and just watches this crew of 5 gets downed in seconds by these highly trained, really well-equipped troops. And it sends a signal to the player, fuck around, that's what you're going to find at the other end. And so it's, again, some of this is like telling the players without telling the players that here are consequences for actions as the city deems them, right? These are the ways in which the city punishes or rewards certain acts by you and your crew. Bonus points, though, if you could turn this on its head at one point and place the question in front of them, like, hey, there might be a nomad that does need to get shot, and they are not on the shit list with the Aldecaldos or the Jodes yet. You know what happens to people who, you know, raise a gun or a blade against a brother or sister. Is it worth it? And, like, if you can do that to them, make the consequence a real factor to consider that they might need to deal with, if they want to get done what they are either being paid for, or like if it's a personal thing, like it might then devolve a little further. But yeah, that just my added little note there. Sometimes you're showing them this is what will happen, and then you give them an example of this is why you might do it.
Also, breadcrumbs are fun as well.
They are.
And it may lead to like bigger discoveries, but I've had I've had a party where it's just like they kind of what the media is kind of got note that like food carts, bodegas, or like other like vendors kept getting robbed for very like low value items. So it would happen every once in a while, and the media, as soon as they caught wind of this, they would just go there right away, and they would be looking around for what the fuck's going on. And they find a small pair of gloves. They find a tiny they find a little tennis shoe, and they're looking around, and they encounter basically they encountered a group, a yo gang that literally has been working as a very, very efficient group of thieves, where they know how to open doors, they know how to get into places. They're a little too smart for their own good, and so the media finally tracks them down. It's like, hey, if you guys know what's good for you, stop doing this. Because they were getting more and more ambitious, so it became a race against the clock for them. And it's one of those that like the media started finding more connections through these kids, where it's just like, all right, what are you doing this for? Do you even have suppliers? Do you know people? And with that, it started a whole quest of developing this yo gang into a little bit more of a safer group out on the street. And it all started with just like noticing small things at different sites that he was investigating.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's another good way to kind of reward the kind of heads up gameplay, as I like to call it. That like if your players are looking into stuff, give them something that is substantive about the world that could help them later, right? Either by providing them a connection or by giving them some small advantage. Even relationships that just boil down to like Diamond has a character in one of my paid games where she took an NPC we meet really early into one of the pre-written campaigns, this one in particular being for Hope Reborn, and she decided to like make that person a romantic interest after a little while, because it was like, well, we keep running into each other, and we might as well, be more than just random acquaintances in the city, right? And so like even something like that can turn into long-term humanity gain. Like it's a stabilizer on what is otherwise like potentially a very like hectic, dangerous, and chaotic life. I mean, like this character that Diamond plays is an exec who has been dealing with threats on her life pretty repeatedly over the like nearly the entire campaign. So it's kind of like having that foil to that essentially is also useful. Like even just providing an outlet to feel a sense of normalcy in the time between is a big deal. And so never let the opportunity for a useful player tool go to waste or pass you by. NPCs should almost never just be NPCs unless maybe we're talking like a storekeeper. Like the guy down at the local bodega, maybe you don't know them, right? Maybe you do, but like I don't go to the nth degree and describe every bodega owner that my players ever interact with. I describe a couple of important ones, but like not every one of them.
Yeah. Like, if it's like this guy, like perhaps, you know, Michael, the guy that, you know, knows your order as soon as you walk in the bodega, like knows that you're in for that pack of cigarettes,
right.
Knows, you know, how you're taking your sandwich that morning. Like, perhaps, you know, Michael becomes a little more important where, you know, suddenly it's like, you know, hey, I've got a little bit of a problem with the booster gang. Can you help me out? Kind of situation.
Right.
But yeah. Celsius looking out for Generation Red. Yes. And Generation Red took care of Celsius.
Well, exactly. And that's literally where I'm like, that was me guiding Cody into the narrative. Because like I could tell he was taking a very passive approach, and even admitted to me after this, like a couple weeks later, that he was like, damn it, I was trying to play a character that could be very non-committal and I could just be really low energy and just kind of shoot things. And then you gave me Generation Red and I could not stay out of it. And I'm like, that's the point. Because if you ever have a player, and I know everyone who has GM'd long enough will have had a player at some point where they don't want to engage as readily as some of the others at the table do, the way to pull them out of their shell is to give them something to care about. And I just happen to know Cody extremely well to know that that would pull on the heartstrings for him and let him like be pulled out into the action a little more. And go figure, you know, that did exactly what I intended it to. And that made me extremely happy. So that's one of those things where if you know there is a layer of the game that that a player like this would want to interact with more regularly, and maybe you either aren't featuring it enough, or when you do feature it, somehow they get left out of it, give them a highly personal reason to interact with it more, right? Like, go in with that mission in mind of like, I'm going to offer the netrunner, for example, maybe more networks to netrun and allow them time ahead of the rest of the party to begin engaging with that network and start like taking traps out in front of the party. Because like, I know one of those things that I regularly see with netrunners, and this is slightly tangential, but still on topic. One of the issues that netrunners I've played with seem to run into pretty often is that we enter the room and the traps are triggered, right? So turrets descend, laser grids ignite, like all that shit starts playing off at that moment. And by the time the netrunner has spent enough time to dig into the access point and get a control node for one of these things to be able to shut them off, the party's already dealt with the threat. Like, it's already gone. So the netrunner just may as well have not gone into the network. And that always feels bad. So, you know, if you see that happening a lot, maybe give that netrunner some time to break an access point on the outside of the building before the rest of the party engages. And then they get a few minutes while the party is getting in their positions around the building to infiltrate the network, start shutting things down, so that they have that opportunity to feel their power fantasy and be part of things. But there's something like that you could do for every role. That might be a topic we cover at another time, because I know we really don't have the time to do that today. But it's one of those things that I think is something that every GM should learn how to do, because you will inevitably have a player that is going to be a little more reserved and like withdrawn at the table, and this is a way that you could help engage them and like pull them back into the meat and potatoes of what you're trying to do.
So I suppose to round things out with hands-off player guidance, environmental storytelling, very common, very useful tool that, I mean, and I'm not trying to dismiss it as like everyone uses it. Oh, well, this is a very useful thing that has worked for decades in tabletop games.
Well, and it gets overlooked by amateur GMs, and I do not mean that derogatively, by the way, for any of you who are newer GMs. when you are new to something like this, it's not the first thing to occur to you like, oh, I should leave hints in front of the players like that. You usually, at least in my experience, when I was new and when I engaged with people who are new to being a GM in general, you want to play things a little more straight, right? Like you're just like, all right, cool. Like here, right off my cuff, I will show you what I am doing. Because you just want to get into the things that excite you about the system. And sometimes that environmental storytelling is really good. If you're an intrigue-focused GM, like if you've done a lot of games like Call of Cthulhu that are involved heavily in investigation and stuff like that, you'll know how valuable some of those things can really be before any real like action, quote unquote, takes place. Because it really sets the mood, sets the stakes. Can provide tension depending on what it is. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff that you could do with environmental storytelling. Everyone should learn how to do that and do it well, because that is how useful this is as a tool.
And yes, like I remember, being a real new GM, and like environmental storytelling was not a strong suit for me. I have had to grow into that, and I'm still learning how to do it. And like, if you just want to get like right into it as an amateur GM, like where you're new and you're getting into it, do it. Do the stuff that gets you excited about being a GM. And learn, okay, that was an awesome encounter. What can I do to really paint the set dressing for it? That is very helpful. Because like, I remember one encounter I've had, like where these guys were in an apartment building, in a new apartment building, and I had mentioned, and the floor is a little wet. There's a bit of a damp smell in the air, and one was just like, "How new is this building?" And I'm like, "It's about 2 years old." Why is it wet? And it's like, I'm glad you asked. So, pipe burst. Instead of like immediately causing the pipe to burst, throw it out there. Leave that out there for them to find. Of course, putting soft barriers in front of the party where they have to find another way around, very useful. Encourages them to explore their environment more, or realize, okay, we don't have the tools for this. Either flash of luck, oh, I have this item, or plan to get that later. NPC relationships, develop them. Make it a point that if a player does something important that NPC either finds, admirable or absolutely profane, like, sure, I understand you were dealing with that booster gang, but did you really have to slaughter all those people? Or, I'm glad you got rid of those guys. They've been harassing our community for a while.
Yeah.
Like, always take a moment to just, like, look at, like, how can player actions help them learn ways to improve their character going forward? Look for that. So that being said, Emmerron, any last remarks before we close this out?
No, not on this particular topic. We're going to talk about on the next half of the episode here. So for those of you here live with us on Twitch as we record this, for those of you who are watching this later on Spotify, you're going to continue right through to the next thing. Those on YouTube, though, link is down below to the next half of the episode so that you can see what we're going on with. So our next topic we are going to discuss on my half is going to be helping yourself by giving some of the responsibility for your world building to your players. And I am very excited to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So go click on the link below, and of course, remember, check out Artal's website, and if you ever want to get anything off of there, use our code Wireheads to get 10% off on your next purchase.
Yeah.
And the purchase after that. Just use the code. Use it. Just a little treat. That being said, I'm Diamond Dust.
And I'm Emmerron.
And thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Or see you soon. Or yes. Bye.